Hi, everybody. So I'm hoping we're live. I have no husband here today to tell me that you can hear me. So I'm going to need one of you, please, if you wouldn't mind, just to ping me a little note in the comments at the side so that I know that you can hear me. You might want to do it faster. I'll start singing. You really don't want to hear me singing. Oh, I lost a few people. They really didn't want to hear me singing. So somebody just ping me and let me know that you can hear me. Jeannie, hello. Welcome from Las Vegas. Good to see you again. Thank you for coming back. So we'll give it a few minutes. I really must have scared a few people off threatening to sing. I'm actually a really good singer. Well, that sounds very vain, doesn't it, to tell you that I'm a really good singer. But I can carry a tune. We have famous singers in my family, related to famous singers in Nashville. I won't brag and tell you who they are, but they're there. However, you've obviously not joined to hear me sing. You have joined for my Amazon interview expertise. So I'm going to give it a couple of minutes. It usually takes everyone a while to arrive. So we'll give it a couple of minutes and then hopefully we can get going. Although we seem to be going in the opposite direction. Come on, higher, higher. Need some more people. Or it's just you and me, Jeannie, and it's going to be an awesome session for you if it's just you and me. I'm joking. Got a couple more people than that, but not huge. Everybody else, come on, say hello. Tell me where you're from. I love to find out how far and wide my Amazon interview whiz experience extends. I've had Japan, India, Sao Paulo. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Thank you for joining. Oh, you've got your panel coming up soon, Jeannie. Oh, my goodness. Okay, and you did your written sample yesterday. Excellent. Mark, you're in Japan. Ooh, exciting. Yeah, I had someone from my academy in Japan who managed to get a job with Amazon Studios. She was so lovely. Fumiko was her name. She was lovely. So I'm excited that I've reached all the way to Japan. Good morning, Chetan from Tempe. I'm going to go for the E on the end. I hope that's right. Arizona. I'm sure it's warm there. It's not warm here at all. It's really cold. My nose is very cold. Juna. Oh, hi, Juna. How are you doing? I recognize your name from having had exchanges on YouTube. And you're from Dubai. Very nice. I flew through Dubai once on my way to the Maldives. Didn't make it outside the airport, but quite frankly, the airport blew my mind. I've never seen so much marble in one place. So one day I will land and stop. Oh, you've got your panel on Monday. Awesome. Fingers crossed for you. Okay, so we're having a few more people arriving, but what I'll do is I'll give you my usual spiel. And whilst I do that, I'm sure people will arrive. There's a couple of you I know you've been here before, so please just forgive me. I need to do this for those of you who have not been here before. So, sorry, let me just sort out my chair. That's very annoying. Okay, so obviously the first thing I have to say is I'm sorry for the duvets. Everybody gets to see the duvets. I don't sleep in this room, but the sound is awful in this room. It's very square and boxy. So I bring in my entire family's duvets before I start these sessions to try and improve the sound quality. So apologies for that. I am Gigi. I am the Amazon interview whiz, which most of you, I hope, know because you found this through my YouTube channel. I interviewed, bar raised. I was a senior leader hiring manager at Amazon for a number of years, and I gave the go to hire literally hundreds of Amazonians across tech, non-tech, all sorts of different job families, all sorts of different countries in the world, including Japan. I don't think Dubai, but definitely including Japan. So genuinely, I know what it takes to get hired at Amazon. Since leaving Amazon, I have launched my own Amazon Interview Whiz Academy. I started my YouTube channel before I left Amazon. Basically, I could tell when I was bar raising that there were candidates who had had interview preparation coaching and good advice, and they did a lot better than those that hadn't. And then I discovered how much Amazon interview coaching actually costs, which can run into the thousands of dollars. So I decided I would create my own academy using digital to make it really, really affordable for everybody to be able to get my type of Amazon interview expertise for themselves. So my academy cost about 90% less than it would cost you to get that interview advice from an expert such as myself. My motto is Amazon interview expertise for all, which is why I have the YouTube channel, why I do these free sessions, no holds barred, no registration, no marketing follow-ups. It's here, it's free for you because I believe in that philosophy. Okay, so tiny bit of housekeeping. I won't be doing technical questions. There are hundreds of job families in Amazon and no one person can be a technical expert in those. My expertise as a bar raiser was in the leadership principles and in interview strategy. I can see the leadership principles through pretty much any job context, story, etc. That was my expertise. So that's what we're going to do today. Second thing is, when you ask questions, please just don't ask for general advice. If you're just looking for general advice, there's like 2.5 hours worth of it in my YouTube channel, very specific general advice. So please go there first. And then if you have follow-up questions, you can always ping me. And then what I'll do is people will ask me questions in the comment section here, and I will just try to find questions that I think are most useful for everybody so that we all use our time well. Okay, so with that introduction done, why don't we just get going? So I'm going to just scroll through. I'll say hi to people as we go along because it's always nice to say hello, and then we'll see what questions we get. So let's fire away. And let me know where you're from as well when you say hello. I'd really appreciate to know where you're all coming from. Okay. So we've got lots of final loops coming up. Juna, Mark, final loops coming up. Very exciting. Vagabond 1, hello. Yes, I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm having a good day today, so that's always positive. Probably because my children are at school and I'm here alone, but hey, we won't go there. Ashley Green. Oh, sorry, I've just spotted Ashley. I'm going to say hello to Sumit. How are you doing? You're getting an offer today for a technical program manager. Yay! Well done, Sumit. That's amazing. Congratulations. And then, Ashley, you made it too. You can confirm loops on Friday, right? You were sent 2 dates to choose from. Both are on Friday. So you've made it through to loop. Awesome. Awesome, Ashley. Fingers crossed. And they're always on Fridays. What is it about Fridays? That's amazing. Well done, Ashley, for making it through. Well done, Sumit, for getting an offer. That's incredible. I'm so proud of you. Well done. Okay, let's see where else we've got to. So, Oshin, hello. You are more than welcome. I'm glad you find my videos informative. Let's have a look at your question. Okay, Oshin, I'm going to post your question. So, your question is that you have an L6 role loop on Friday, another Friday. Your story doesn't cover the scope required per the job description. Should you be worried about that? Okay, so I'm going to assume from this that your stories are in the vague kind of skill set area that the job that you're applying for is. Sometimes it happens that you're coming from an organization that's a bit smaller than Amazon, so you don't have examples of the scale and scope and the complexity of the role that you're going for in Amazon. Now, sometimes, that's just a reality that you're facing. There's nothing you can do to go back in time and change the past. So what you're going to need to do is, if you're aware that your example isn't of the right scale and scope compared to the role, to express that to your interviewer. So you could always start your example with, I'm aware that the example I'm about to give you isn't of the same scale that you would be experiencing at Amazon. That's because the company that I came from was only a small 10 people company with half a million customers, whatever it might be. But I do believe that the lessons that I learned and the skills that I deployed will absolutely scale should I get into Amazon. And then go into your story, because that way your interviewer is prepped to know that what they're going to get is not going to be of the scale that they would expect. So that part of their brain, as they're listening to your example, won't waste its time on going, this probably isn't going to work because this isn't of the right scale. They're going to be thinking, okay, how does this scale when I'm thinking about the response to this question, this answer, in the context of Amazon? So I don't think you should be worried per se. It's not the end of the world. It's reality. Lots and lots of people come from smaller companies than Amazon. it's Amazon, right? So you just need to be clear that you're aware of this. Prep your interviewer so that they don't even spend any time thinking about it through the interview, and let them know that you believe that what you've learned and your skills and experience will scale should you move into Amazon. So I hope that helps and answers that question for you. Thank you for that one. It's a really good question. Okay, so moving on then. Mariana Melli Fromage. Gosh, that was a very long word. I'm not sure that's a real word, let's be honest. You're a Frenchie living in Spain. Nice. Okay. Nice cultural mix there. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Oh, Kevin. Okay. All right. Oh, so Kevin, you didn't get the offer of Military Pathways. You don't get feedback. That's really tough, I know. But you're under consideration for Skills Bridge as well as an ops manager. Okay, so Kevin, I know you don't know what went wrong and you're not ever going to get any feedback from Amazon, but I hope that you have watched my video on how to gather feedback when you're never going to get any from your recruiter, because it is really, really important for everybody. When you come out of your interview, you'll obviously have no idea whether you will or won't be passed through to the next round, or if it's Loop getting an offer. But that doesn't matter. What you must make sure you do is, as soon as you come out of an interview, write down everything that you can remember about the interview. Then give it a day. And during the course of that next 24 hours, I promise you, things will pop into your memory that you hadn't thought of the first time you wrote it all down. And you need to add all of that to your document. Then you've got a big compilation of everything that you can remember that went on at your interview. And then what you can do, I would suggest giving it another 24 hours, is come back to it and start to analyze it yourself. What did you say? Could you have said better? What could you have said differently? What other example could you have brought in? What level of detail could you have gone into that maybe you didn't go into, so that you can gather feedback on yourself for yourself. And then that way, if you do get passed through to the next round, excellent. You've got a record of feedback to help you optimize yourself for the next round. And if unfortunately you don't make it through to the next round or get offered, you've still got a really good record that you can use to take on to the next interview, whether it be at Amazon or elsewhere. So Mark, if you haven't already, please do that feedback doc for yourself, because if you're going for these other roles, sorry, Kevin, not Mark, if you're going for these other roles, then you're going to want that feedback, because you're never going to be told by Amazon why you didn't make it through to the next round on that particular role. Okay. Thank you, Kevin. It was a nice opportunity for me to be able to say that. Okay, Mark, let's post your question. So for your final loop, you have the hiring manager, yes, as you should, a team member, as you should, a third person from a related group across the country. Would the third person be a bar raiser? So it's unusual that you've got a final loop and you've only got 3 people. That's a very small loop. It's not unheard of, but it's a small loop. So I would suggest that if you've got a hiring manager and clearly a direct member of the team and then one other random so-and-so, then you can probably be confident that that random so-and-so is the bar raiser. Now, having said that, Mark, I do say this a lot to candidates. Don't stress about who the bar raiser is. Now, I know that person is incredibly important in the final decision that is made. I was a bar raiser. I know how important I was. But when it comes to your actual interview experience, you shouldn't expect anything different from being interviewed by the bar raiser, as being interviewed by the hiring manager, as being interviewed by the team member. Particularly on a small loop, every single interview will really, really count. So you just have to, I would suggest, treat every single person in that loop, all 3 of them, as if they were the bar raiser, and aim to wow every single one of them. Don't let yourself get psyched out, which is what happens quite a lot with candidates. Don't let yourself get psyched out when this person who you think is the bar raiser comes on screen. As far as you're concerned, Everybody's the bar raiser, and that's the best mentality to approach it with. Okay, so I hope that was helpful, Mark. Going to move on. Ashley Madder, hello. Nice to see you again. Okay. Chibu, hello. We had an exchange on LinkedIn as well, didn't we? Okay. All right. Let me just post this because there's a few things to say about this. So of course, Chibu, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And I wish you'd found this channel a little bit earlier. I'm doing everything I can to revamp my YouTube channel, by the way, with new thumbnails, new tags, new headers to try and get myself a little bit higher in the algorithms. There is some real trash ahead of me and it's offensive to me. So I'm working very hard on that, Chibu. So I'm sorry I failed to get myself into your line of sight before now. So you had your loop last week. You used 17 examples. That's a lot of examples with data and results, but you repeated one story with 3 interviewers, different leadership principle questions. Sigh. Okay. So Chibu, it's not the end of the world. If you went through 17 examples, that is a lot of examples. If you manage to only repeat one of them 3 times, you've still got 16 unique other examples. So usually, Chibu, I would tell people that I would be a little bit concerned if I saw a repeat 3 times. That would usually start to bother me if I was dealing with kind of an L6 and higher candidate. If you're kind of an L5 or lower, 3 would be kind of borderline for what would make me uncomfortable for a repeat. But in that you pumped out, that's a really impressive number. So many other stories. I don't think you should be worried about the concern about range. That's the reason why I tell people to avoid repeating, because they want to see that you've got a really big range of strong examples and that you are the type of candidate that performs brilliantly again and again and again. And that's why I say avoid repeats, because it makes it look like you don't have a big range. But given how many examples you got there, Chibu, that is a range. So sleep easy tonight. I don't think you should worry about that. Okay. But thank you for that. And I am sorry I failed you and didn't get in front of you earlier. I'm working on it, I promise you. Okay. Whoa, we got a big jump there. Okay. Hey, Paul A. from Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining. You are more than welcome for the advice. Okay, Juna. Okay. All right. Let me just pin this question, Juna. So when they ask about the most innovative thing that you've done, which they will potentially do, can you use an example that we did as a team, but really double down on my contribution? Or should it be something I innovated alone? Okay, so Juna, this is really important. So that question is about invent and simplify. So what they're looking for is, in that leadership principle, is people who can come up with new inventions or new ways of doing things, simplifiers, to help scalability. So I would caution you against talking about something that somebody else invented, because it won't give them any sense of whether you are able to invent, come up with new ways of doing things, or simplify, come up with more efficient and more effective ways of doing things. Now, in that example, there may be other leadership principles that you could use that example for, in terms of ownership or deliver results or earns trust. You know, I can imagine a team project could bubble up all of those different leadership principles. But if you're talking about the question is about an invention that you did, you really shouldn't use an example where somebody else had the idea, because they're looking to see, are you the type of person that can come up with new ways of thinking, new ways of working? Okay, so I hope that one helped there, Juna. Okay, moving on. Okay, Dave, this is a good question. This is a really good question, because I think this is a very typical example of where the Amazon interview experience / process deviates enormously from what you'll hear from interview coaches about other types of interview processes. So this is why I've pinned it. So Dave, you've got your loop today. Fingers crossed for you. Is it okay to ask the hiring manager after your discussion, he's part of the loop, if he had any concerns that I can address in the interactive format? I would not suggest you do that, because that's just not the way the Amazon process works. What they're trying to do is understand your behaviors according to the leadership principles. They're asking you a very clear question that they're looking for you to pull an example from in your career history. It gets really messy when candidates put you on the spot and say, I know I've just spent the past 40, I'm kind of summarizing up here, right? I've just spent the past 45 minutes blurting at you. You've probably had no time whatsoever to process the information that I've just dropped in on you. But that aside, could you tell me if you have any concerns, and I'll tell you why you shouldn't have those concerns. Honestly, my experience is it never works out well. You need to make sure that you know the key leadership principles for the role by using the job description. You go in with your very best examples. I've never felt comfortable when a candidate has asked that of me, because I've not yet had time to process the information that I've been gathering. What an Amazon interviewer is supposed to do in the interview process is simply gather data. It is not a decision-making forum. No Amazonian should go into or come out of an interview having made a decision. They might come out feeling a certain way, but they shouldn't make any decisions until they've sat down and reviewed their notes. So, of course, Dave, you can ask. You're not going to get any penalty points for asking that question. I just don't think that you'd get a valuable conversation out of your interviewer, because I doubt they'll have really got their heads around what they like about you and what they don't like about you. Question time is about your opportunity to ask the questions that you need to know, or the answers that you need to know, to decide if you get an offer. Is that the type of job that you want to do? Is it the company you want to work for? Is it the hiring manager you want to work for? The end of the interview isn't intended to be an opportunity for you to fill the gaps that you potentially created in the early part of the interview. It's about question time for you. So my recommendation is you use the question time to ask the important questions. You don't use question time to try and backpedal about examples that you used earlier on. That's my opinion. Now you'll hear something completely different from the more general interview coaches out there. If you see anything on YouTube or LinkedIn, Dave, I know they'll tell you to do exactly what you've described. So obviously no judgment in terms of you coming up with the question. I don't think it works in an Amazon interview context. Okay. Thank you for the question, though. It's a really good one, and no one's ever asked it before. So I always love it when people ask me questions that have not yet been asked. Okay, so let's move on. Oh, sorry, I'm just laughing at now I've lost it completely at Marion's comment there about cheese. Brilliant. Okay, so we've had a big jump and I've completely lost track. Okay. Yeah, Vagabond one, I'm going to pin your question. So, Vagabond one, you are under consideration for a role, early stages, first phone screen. Okay, well, we've done the first phone screen is done. Do you think it's okay to apply for other positions, or can it jeopardize the first application? Fabulous question. All right, so this is the advice from the heart of Amazon. I've spoken to my recruiting Amazon friends many times about this, and this is the position everybody holds. If you want a job at Amazon and you are a project manager, then fill your boots with, program manager. Fill your boots with applications for program management role, because it's very clear you want to work for Amazon, and jobs like program managers are completely agnostic in terms of the division, the team, the product, etc. So if an interviewer sees that a recruiter sees that you've got multiple applications in for a program manager, they're going to think nothing of it, because they're going to go, this person really wants to work at Amazon. And I like the fact that this person really wants to work at Amazon. And if they're fantastic, then I'm going to make sure that my team who I'm recruiting for and my offer is as good as it can possibly get. Now, if you are applying for seemingly totally unrelated roles, so let's extend on the program manager analogy and say you applied for a program manager role, a vendor manager role, finance manager role, and I'm not sure how likely that combination is, but if you were throwing applications out there and it didn't look like it was a particularly coherent goal in terms of the skill set that you have and wanting to work for Amazon, it's then where recruiters start to get a bit jumpy, because they look at your application for their role and they'll be saying, well, he doesn't really want to be a program manager. He's just going to go for anything that he can possibly get in Amazon. And the very best candidates, I promise you, are not the candidates that throw as much mud at the wall and see what sticks. So I don't think that, Bon, there's any issue whatsoever with you making multiple applications to Amazon, but do make sure that when you make them, that you make them in the same skill set area. So if you're a finance manager, apply to finance management roles anywhere you like in Amazon. No one's going to mind. Okay, good luck with the path that you're on at the moment, though. Fingers crossed for you. Okay. Yeah, Mark, sorry, we're just going back to Mark, and I was talking about the 17 examples. That's for an entry-level position. Yeah, that's fine. You've done a great job, Mark. 17 is good. You're good. Okay, moving on then. Okay, yep. Chetan, this is a great question, another one that I get quite often. So you've got a loop for an L4 SDE1. Yep, next Friday. That's crazy. What are all these Amazonians doing, just stacking up their diaries on Fridays for interviews? That's crazy. Okay, you're a recent college grad, and therefore several of your examples revolve around your recent research assistantship and tutoring experience. Is that okay? Yeah, it's absolutely okay. So the only time where I do say to people it's absolutely no problem to use examples that are outside of a professional context is if you are a grad. Amazon totally appreciates that you're a grad, and therefore you would not have potentially extensive work experience, other than maybe if you manage to snaffle yourself an internship, which I believe is rarer than gold dust these days. So it's absolutely fine. You just need to be thinking about how you create the equivalents for the concepts that people will ask you about in an Amazon interview, because you will get the questions that will come to you will be very much phrased in professional context. So a colleague, a customer, a peer, your manager, those types of languages is what you'll hear in the question. So you just need to be prepared to effectively map between your experience and the language of your experience and the language of Amazon. So when we're talking about a customer, let's say, for example, you ran some kind of society when you were at college, university, school, whatever term you like to use for it. If you ran a society, all of the members of that society will be your customers. If you were on a project group with a number of other students at school, college, university, any question that might be about your peers or a colleague, you could use that group, your kind of the group of people who were on the project with you, as being peers or colleagues. So just prepare yourself for imagining what the bridge is between your language of experience and the language of Amazon. And once you've created that bridge nice and cleanly, you'll have absolutely no problem in terms of the interviewer appreciating the translation question that they've given you in professional terms to your answer in educational terms. But it's absolutely fine to use non-professional examples if you're a grad. Okay, so I hope that was useful, Chetan. Thank you for that question. Ooh. Oh, keeps jumping up and down. Oh, I'm not very good at this. Okay, Juna. Okay, so how common is it for Amazon to cancel a scheduled panel because they filled the role? You've been seeing some comments on social media from applicants who had their panel cancelled a week / a night before. So it's very, very common, very, very common for a panel to be cancelled or an interview to be cancelled because they filled the role, because roles get filled every day. And the way the Amazon process works, and there is definitely a video on this on my YouTube channel, which I've just renamed. So I can't now tell you the name because I don't remember it. But I have got a video on my YouTube channel about what you need to know about the other applicants for the role or your competition, something like that. It's a production line. So unlike most companies that gather all of the resumes together, compare them all, choose the ones they want, bin the ones they don't, and then go to first round with all of those people, interview all of those people at exactly the same time or within a week, and then compare all of those people and decide who they want to move on to the next round and who they want to pass on. It doesn't work like that in Amazon. It's literally a sausage machine where a resume comes in, a resume gets looked at by the recruiter passes the resume to the hiring manager looks at the resume and then decides to interview the candidate or not. Whilst that's happening, another resume comes into the recruiter looks at the resume, decides whether to hand it over to the hiring manager. You get the gist. So it's this constant sausage factory. So there's always someone, usually, ahead of you in the process. And if that person is proven to be bar raising, then everybody else in the process behind them is going to have their process ended, because there's no point in interviewing that candidate if that role is no longer available. So it is very common. So I'm not surprised to hear that you're seeing comments in social media about people having their loops, their phone screens cancelled a week before. A day before is a bit tight. So certainly in my day, if that had happened to me and my recruiter came to me and said, which they usually would do, what do we do? We've just filled this role and we've got a candidate coming to loop tomorrow. Usually what I would say is to continue on and complete the loop. By that time, the candidate has done so much work in preparation that the possibility exists that they might also be incredible and be a bar raising candidate. And even if the role that you've got is now gone and someone's got an accepted offer, you might determine that this person is a bar raising candidate and decide to go hunting around the organization for another job for them. So I certainly, and it would be less common, I think, to cancel a panel a day before, much more common to cancel a panel a week before, very likely to cancel a phone screen a day before, and equally very likely to cancel a phone screen the week before, because the role's gone. There's not much point in interviewing somebody other than if they're so close and have done so much preparation and have now made it to panel. Only in those circumstances could I and would I justify bringing them in to do 11 hours worth of Amazon investment to loop them, even if there was no job to put them into. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question, Juna. Okay, moving on then. Ashley Green. This is an interesting question, and I'm curious as to why. So let me read it to everybody. Do I think it will appear awkward or impact your chances for hire if I use audio only for the virtual on-site interview? Right, Ashley. So, I mean, the first thing that jumps to my mind is I want to know why, but I'm not going to ask you to answer that for me on this, but you've piqued my curiosity. Do I think it would appear awkward? So if you feel strongly that you want to do audio only, what I think you need to do is reach out to your recruiter and explain to them that you want to do audio only. You're going to have a good reason, quite honestly, because what is weird is if you're audio only and the other person is on video. That's really uncomfortable for the person on the other side. It actually makes you feel very exposed. It's a bit weird, but you do feel very exposed when you're the only person showing your video. So if you really don't want to do video, speak to your recruiter and let them know, and then they should be telling the interviewers that they should do audio only, unless that interviewer still is quite comfortable to do video whilst you do audio. Do I think it will impact your chances? No, not in any measurable way. Now, clearly I've got no data for this, right? And Amazonians are very, very good at avoiding bias. The whole process is built to avoid bias. So whether you're an introvert and extrovert, whether you waggle your hands around like I do all of the time, or sit there nice and quietly and passively, the Amazon process is built around gathering data. So there's not a lot of, and there shouldn't be a lot of influence that physically seeing you is going to make to the outcome of your process. The only places where I think it does make differences is if you rely on your body language to tell your story for you. I'm very driven by my body language, my tone of voice. That's a huge part of how I communicate. And therefore, if I'm not on video, I believe that means that people don't get to see me and my full kind of range. Now, if that's not you, then that's not a problem, right? So as long as you're choosing an option that on balance gives you the best opportunity to feel comfortable and to perform your best, then you should do it and it won't be detrimental to you. But I do think if you ask that of your recruiter, they are probably going to ask you why. So have a good reason why that doesn't involve, I don't want the person on the other end of the screen to realize that I'm looking at my notes. Now, clearly you wouldn't say that, but that is one potential reason why people might prefer it. So if you're going to ask, just come up with a good reason that's quite frankly hard for the recruiter to say no to. I don't think it will materially impact your chances. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Okay. Jeannie and Juna, I love the fact that you're having a conversation together. I'll let you get on with it. Swap phone numbers. I love this about this, by the way, guys. You're so welcome to chat to each other. The Amazon Interview Wiz is meant to be a community. It's about expertise for all. So if you can share your experiences and expertise with each other, that is exactly what my mission and vision is all about. So fill your boots, go for your life. Okay, I'm going to keep scrolling. Oh, we just jumped. Okay. Sorry, pregnant pause, people. I'm just trying to find one that. Okay. A. Frank. Hello, A. Frank. Don't think I've seen you here before, so welcome. Thank you for joining. So this is a good question that's relevant for almost everybody. So will a first failed interview be marked against you on a second try? No, it won't be. I mean, the truth is that these days anyway, so many people are applying to Amazon over and over and over again. It seems to be getting more common that people are making repeat applications for Amazon than it was when I joined 6 years ago. So it definitely won't be held against you. The truth is somebody might not even notice that you've made a previous application to Amazon. Now, when you get someone, the recruiter will notice because they'll dig deep. But if you got to a phone screen or to a hiring manager and managed to make it past the recruiter, the possibility exists if your application was a while ago that no one's even going to notice that it happened. So it definitely isn't going to count against you on a second try. The only time where it might count against you is if the outcome of the first phone screen was really negative. And this happens very rarely, right? But sometimes I have had the experience myself. You meet people on a first phone screen and there's no way on God's green earth you would want them working in your organization. Now, those people are rare, but sometimes there are rude people, there are offensive people, there are aggressive people, and you know that they would never be a fit for Amazon. And you write that down on your notes. And then likelihood is the next time they make an application, the new recruiter will see your notes saying, no way I would quit if this person joined this organization, and they would not move the candidate on. But I promise you, in the literally thousands of first round phone screens that I did over my tenure, that probably happened to me 3 or 4 times. So other than that scenario, it won't make a massive difference. So don't worry about that, A. Frank. Thank you for the question. And please come back. Okay, let's keep going. Yeah, sorry, Mark is just telling me that his comment was about the fact that he only had 3 people on his loop, that it was an entry position. I still think that's very unusual, Mark, but don't sweat it. There's less people to have to convince, quite frankly, so it can only be good. Prasanna, you've had your loop last week and you're awaiting the outcome. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Okay. Ooh, okay. Tracy Lynn, welcome back, because I've definitely seen your name before, from New Jersey. You had your final 5-hour loop last Wednesday. Well, at least it wasn't a Friday. All of your interviews were great. The last 3 interviews asked you 6 questions instead of 2 to 3. Is that normal? Okay, so some of that will depend on the level that you're recruiting for. So I would expect to be asking more than 2 or 3 questions for the more junior roles. So if it's kind of L4s, L5s, I would be very much expecting to be asking more than 2 to 3 questions, because generally their examples are less complex. And if they're less complex, they take less time to go through, and therefore you can fit more in. The more senior a candidate gets, the less questions I would expect to ask them, because I would be diving really deep into the examples they're giving me, and I'm unlikely to have enough time to ask that many questions. So Tracy Lynn, I don't know what level role you're going for, but if it's kind of an L5 level role, then I wouldn't be hugely surprised. 6 is quite a lot, but I wouldn't be hugely surprised that you were getting more than 2 to 3. Okie dokie. So let's move on then. Okay, sorry, I'm just going to read this one. Good question, Prasanna. I like this question. This is deep. Okay. Does an example in direct response to a leadership question, say ownership, carry more weight in debrief as compared to other ownership behavior demonstrated in response to other questions? No, because that's not how it works. How it works is they are trying to gather evidence on the leadership principles, and they'll gather it from anywhere. Now, they have to ask you a specific question on that leadership principle, because if they didn't, it would be pot luck as to whether you ever mentioned any behaviors associated with that leadership principle. So if they care about a particular leadership principle, they're going to ask you it to ensure that you cover it off. But the actual decision-making process is about aggregating up all of the behaviors that you have talked about in the course of all of your interviews for a particular leadership principle. So the bar raiser and all of the interviewers will be going through every single example, pulling out all of the little bits of detail about behaviors and effectively squashing them together and looking at them as a whole for ownership. So you would certainly expect to be talking more about the behaviors of ownership in an ownership question, but it doesn't stand on its own. The entire group will be pulling little bits of evidence of behaviors of ownership from every other question that you talk about, squishing it together, and that is the big picture for ownership. And they will make a decision based on the big picture of ownership, not based on the question that you were asked specifically about ownership. So I hope that helps. There's no weighted contributions in anything as far as the Amazon interview process is concerned. There's no points racked up anywhere. It is a process of bringing together data and analyzing an aggregated data set. Okay, moving on then. Oh, thank you, Vagabond One. What I'm doing is fantastic. Appreciate that. That's very sweet of you to say. Okay. Okay. Marionna Melli Fromage. Okay, after 5 months in Amazon, a mat cover, you applied for another role. Past experiences seemed less interesting to interviewers than less interesting to interviewers than this temp job. How to show that you can go for an L5/L6. Okay, well, first thing, Marionna Melli Fromage, there is a huge difference between an L5 and an L6, like massive difference. So you can't target both. If you've been operating at an L4 level and actually you are capable of an L6, somebody would have spotted that very, very quickly. So I think realistically, the question becomes more about how can you show that you can go for an L5? So if it's a 5-month cover, yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that you say that past experience seemed less interesting to the interview than this temp job, because you're only in it for 5 months. So how many examples of really impressive outputs that you could possibly come up with when you've only been in a role for 5 months is beyond me. So obviously, I don't know who they are. I don't know what they said. But if you want to prove that you are capable of an L5, you're going to have to show that you did something really impressive, an L5 standard, in the 5 months that you were in Amazon doing the mat cover. And also, I would say, dig into your career history and also pull out L5 scoped roles. But the only way you demonstrate that you're capable of a level above that which you're operating at is to find the evidence in your past that does actually show you executing at a higher level than the one that you're operating at currently. There's no theoretical stuff going on in Amazon, right? The Amazon way of proving someone is going to be able to do a job is they believe that past experience is indicative of future experience. So there's no, we think that she might be able to do this role. There has to be, we have evidence that she has performed at this level previously, and therefore we feel comfortable that she can perform at this level going forward. Okay, so I hope that helped a little bit. Moving on. Okay, Asal, welcome. Thank you for joining. So you've completed 2 phone screens, one technical and behavioral. Yeah, for a BIE. I love BIEs. Oh, I've worked with so many amazing BIEs at Amazon. I don't think I'll ever get that lucky again. Okay, can we give the same examples earlier round in bar raiser to different interviewer in terms of behavioral questions? Okay, so my general advice, and I definitely have a YouTube video about this that I literally just rebranded and renamed before I got on here, is you should try and avoid repeating examples if you can. That's because Amazon want to know that you have constantly and repeatedly performed at a very high standard, per what I was saying at the beginning of this session. So repeating reduces the pool, and it kind of limits the range that they can assess as to whether you are going to be a constant high performer. Now, you get asked a lot of questions at an Amazon interview, especially if you make it the whole way through to panel/loop. So the truth is, the vast majority of people cannot come up with unique, amazing examples over and over and over again, and they have to reuse examples. So that is understood and appreciated. If you're going to repeat an example, my strong advice is that you only repeat it for a completely different leadership principle than the one you used it for the first time round, which is why writing your feedback, per what I was saying earlier on today, is really important, because you might forget which question you were asked and what example you used. So that's why writing it down as soon as you get off is important. So if you're going to repeat, use it for a completely different leadership principle, and really, really lean in to recrafting what behaviors you focus on when you're telling that narrative. I do have a very specific example in my Amazon Interview Wiz Academy lead interview preparation masterclass that shows exactly how you do that. If anyone has the interview preparation masterclass, you can go and have a look at that. It's all about just refocusing on the other behaviors that relate to the leadership principle. Then, although you've got the same example, you've really focused on different elements of how you behaved. And in that way, it doesn't look like it's you just saying the same thing over and over again. So repeats, they're okay. Try not to do it too many times. I would say no more than twice, depending on how senior you are. And we go back to that complexity in the course of a panel. I would say don't repeat exactly the same example between round 1 and round 2, because that's not a lot of kind of scope for the interviewer to have some sympathy that you've probably got more range. So if you're going to repeat through panel or repeat from round 1 to panel, try avoiding repeat from round 1 to round 2, because if I saw the exact same example coming up again from round 1 in round 2, I'm going to be going, I bet you this person's just going to repeat the same thing again once they get to loop/panel. So it's okay to repeat, just make sure you reshape and lean heavily into the reshape. Okay. So time check. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left. So I'm just going to warn you as well, guys. I'm really sorry. My child is going to walk through the door any minute and my German Shepherd is going to bark. So I apologize for that. Hopefully it won't last too long. All right, so let's see if we can find another question. See if I can come find somebody new here. Okay, right, Saf. Okay, I can only pin one part of this, so I'm just going to pin the end bit, and then I'm just going to talk everyone through the first bit. So, hello, welcome, Saf. Thank you for joining. So you had your panel interview and you made a mistake with the bar raiser. The question was a time you broke a promise to the team and you talked about not meeting deadlines and thinking about giving up initially. Okay, is it a deal breaker? I need another to motivate me when I think about giving up. This is an ownership question, and I used a passive tone when describing how I forward with the first half. Okay, so breaking a promise to your team. Yeah, so it's definitely an ownership question. Yep, it's right about that. And you talked about not meeting deadlines and thinking about giving up initially. No, Saf, is it a deal breaker that you needed someone else to motivate you when you were thinking about giving up? No, it means you're human. No, it will just depend. I mean, obviously, I don't know the full example that you gave, and I'm sure there's a lot more complexity in the example that may have talked about earns trust, that may have talked about ownership, may have talked about deliver results. Amazonians, I know it's hard to believe, but they are human beings. So no, it's not a deal breaker if you need somebody else to help you. I can't tell you how many times I was a crumpled mess on the floor and I needed my colleagues to help me. Sometimes you need a helping hand, but then you get up, you dust yourself off and you move on. So, you'll be fine, Asaf. That's not going to be a killer for you. So don't worry about that one. I lied. I have 2 children coming through the door now, so I'm going to apologize. The dog is going to bark. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Okay. Okay, Chabu, yeah. Okay, I saw you mention this on comments in YouTube, so I'm just going to share it with everybody because it does happen. So your interview session ended early, 15 minutes. That's including your questions. You believe the interview was a bar raiser. You're worried that they weren't impressed with your responses. Actually, this is a really weird one because particularly as a bar raiser, some teams have interviews that last 45 minutes and some teams have interviews that last an hour. And as a bar raiser, because you're not interviewing for your own team, you're just dropping in to different teams' processes. You might be dropping into a team that has a different process to you. So I can tell you this happened exactly to me. In my team that I was working in at the time, we did 45-minute interviews. So I have built my whole kind of way of working around being able to fit an entire interview, including intro and question time, into 45 minutes. So I would go into interviews if I wasn't paying enough attention, which happened once or twice, assuming I only had 45 minutes and trucking at my 45 minutes pace, only to discover I finished and there's still another 15 minutes left because I wasn't holding a high enough bar and paying attention to how long the interview was supposed to be. Now, what I did in every single one of those instances was, rather than fill the extra 15 minutes and say, oh, I'll ask you another question, even though we've finished the interview and clearly we've been through question time, I would just let the candidate go early and say, take an extra 15 minutes, chill out and relax. So I can't guarantee you that that's what happened to YouTube, but I can tell you it is definitely something that I did a few times, and candidates walked away. And I hope I did say, I think in every instance I told the candidate that's what I did so that they wouldn't walk away worrying. But I can't guarantee that every other interviewer is as willing as I am to fess up to their stupidity. So I would say don't worry. It could very much just be the example that I gave you, where they were just planning on a 45-minute interview and didn't realize that it was an hour-long interview. So don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Okay, so, oh, I didn't pin that. I've still got Tracy Lynn's pinned. I apologize, people. I think I've unpinned that now. Yeah, okay. Okay, moving on. Ooh, big jump, big jump. Okay, we've only got 4 minutes left, so I'm going to see if I can find somebody new. Try and be inclusive as possible. Okay. Adeline Liu, welcome. Thank you for joining. This is an interesting one. So your BR brought a shadower who asked all the questions, while the BR, I think you're missing something there. I wasn't aware of this situation, so it threw me off a little. Also, because the shadower was a little nervous too, there was only 2 behavioral questions. Okay, so I definitely also have a video about this on my YouTube channel in terms of why you might have 2 people at your interview. So I think what you have here is a bar raiser shadowing a Brit. So a Brit is a bar raiser in training. And the process for becoming a bar raiser is that you have to, as a Brit, run an interview, and the bar raiser shadows you and watches you and pays attention to how you do, what you say, how you say it, what follow-up questions you ask, etc. And they are effectively then giving you feedback when you leave the session as a Brit to tell you what they think you could do better. And then they write up a report about you. It sounds a bit like school, but they write up a report that then gets submitted to a central space. What happens when you've gathered enough experience as a bar raiser in training is your mentor, because you have a mentor, pulls together all of this information that has been submitted by all of these BRs who have been shadowing you and tries to build a case for them to allow you to be qualified. So that's why you had a BR and somebody else. The reason that somebody else was nervous is because they're a bar raiser in training, and that BR is sitting there judging everything they say and everything that they do. So I know it throws people off. Usually they should tell you that's what they're doing, and that's why you've got 2 people in the interview and why you're getting this experience. But sometimes they don't, which is why I put the video up on YouTube. So I'm sorry it threw you a bit, but the bar raiser would be very experienced, and they'll know that sometimes 2 people at the interview throws people off, etc. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. It'll be more of a reflection on the Brit than it will be of you. Okay. Yes, so great. Sorry, the other thing I just spotted you say that both were really nice though, and you've got 2 perspectives for the QA, which is really rewarding. So that is absolutely, and I think I say this in my video, that's just the best thing about having 2 people, is that you do have the opportunity to ask both people questions at the end. You get like double your money, if you like, in terms of you getting the learnings that you need to know whether Amazon's the type of place that you want to work at. So any of you out there, guys, if you end up with 2 people on your interview, whether it's in the BR round or whether it's just randomly, although maybe you won't know it's the BR round, but whether it's just randomly 2 people, use the opportunity to ask your questions of both. Don't wait for the main interviewer to invite you to ask the not main interviewer questions. Just say your question to the person and then say, and if you don't mind, I'd love to hear Billy, it's always Billy in these sessions as far as I'm concerned, ask Billy the same question. And it's really revealing when you get quite different points of view and broad points of view from those 2 different interviewers. So I'm glad you picked up on that one, Adeline. You really made a good choice in terms of leveraging that. Okay, so we have 1 minute left. How does that happen? Okay. So Harris, I am just going to answer your question because it's a really quick one, and then we're probably going to be done. So you want the interview to be conducted quicker than 2 weeks. Can you request to reschedule the virtual loop an earlier date? Yeah, you can ask, right? They might say no. I had a recent candidate who I was working with who had the same situation. They wanted to bring forward their loop, but unfortunately they couldn't because somebody was away on vacation. But you should certainly ask. It's never going to hurt to ask the question. You just can't be guaranteed to get the outcome that you wanted. Okay, so I think we're at time now, guys. I have mentioned the Amazon Interview Wiz Academy a couple of times. I do offer the Customer Obsession Masterclass completely free. I won't chase you up with follow-up marketing. Customer obsession is the most important leadership principle. And if you are going to dive deep and become an expert in any leadership principle, the customer obsession one is the one that I really recommend. So I give it to everybody because, of course, I would love you to look at my content and think it's amazing and invest in more. But equally, it's also part of my philosophy and my mission on Amazon Interview Expertise for All. So there is the link there. Please go. As I say, I am a marketer. I'm a career marketer. And it's super bizarre for me to let all those leads go and not chase people to upsell them a product. It's very unnatural, but it's my promise to people that that's not what I'm here for. So take it, enjoy it. I hope you learn a lot from it. Obviously, I'd love you to invest in the rest of the program, but if you don't, it's a gift. Please enjoy it. So everybody who has interviews coming up on Friday or any other day of the week, I wish you the very best of luck. For those of you who have managed to secure roles, oh man, I'm so proud of you guys. It's so tough. It's so tough. And if you land a role at Amazon, it's an amazing place with just the cleverest people I've ever worked with in my entire life. Not sure how I'll deal with working in other organizations, but I wish you the very best of luck. I'm back again on Wednesday. You can always get me in the comments on YouTube. I will always respond. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. Annoying, I know. Be safe. Take care of yourselves. And I hope to see you all soon. Good luck, guys. Bye-bye.